Over the past 40 years, Finland's school system has consistently placed among the top rankings internationally in math, science, and reading. This is no coincidence. In the 1970s, Finland's government implemented a complete restructuring of their school system, which includes shorter school days, no homework, and more frequent breaks. As a result, Finland's education system has been ranked the best in the world. It is not far-fetched to assume that some of these principles could apply to many jobs around the world. Admittedly, it is impractical to ask doctors or nursing staff to shorten their shifts, as emergencies can happen at any time and force them to work longer. But we believe that many firms should focus more on the quality of the work produced and less on the quantity. And the focus on the 9 to 5 work routine that many firms employ has many workers feeling overworked. In 2005, 3 in 10 American workers reported feeling overworked, and over half reported feeling overworked in the past 3 months. This is troubling, as many overworked employees suffer a higher chance of health risks and injury, which can lead to time away from work, and overworked employees also suffer from decreased productivity. However, there are also issues with implementing these shorter workdays. More employees may be needed to cover the shorter shifts, and this isn't always a reasonable solution for many smaller businesses. We believe it is at least worth looking into to increase job performance in the workplace.
So I'm going to explain my reasoning behind why I personally think that sleeping in really does affect job performance. So what are some side effects of sleep deprivation and what could they have on your work? So for one being said, irritation. You're cranky and you just really want to go back to bed, but you can't because you're at work. So you may hash it out with a fellow employee, a manager, and just really set the work pace off at a really bad start, which is not always good. Another thing would be drowsiness. You're purely unmotivated to work and you're solely just thinking about sleep, which is cause for loss amounts of production and there's not a really good start as well. And also a lack of communication. Yes, for some places this is not a bad thing, but other places like such as an oil rig, like it's a very dangerous place like this, like a little tiny slip up over that could cause the most massive effects. And this leaves managers always questioning themselves after events like those, asking what could they have done to increase it better for next time. Always the easiest answer is just sleep, because if you could have that one bad day where someone does not get that sleep and just cause a tiny little mess up, and no matter what level of corporation you're at, this could happen to anyone. A site called RobertHalf.com, they asked 1,000 professionals over the course of the United States, and there's some people who said that they ordered 500 more computers than they actually should have. A merely slip of a decimal place could make an overpayment to a client for $1 million. And these could happen to anyone, but it's just the simple lack of sleep that you could get, which could make all the difference. So one way to fix this would simply just be just to extend the workday. If you have people who are coming back from 2 a.m. at night because of family reasons, work reasons, just any reasons, because as an employer, you are not aware of your employees' sleep patterns and what they're going to be like and what they bring to the table until they're actually there. So to save from that, instead of having your employee come in at 8, it could be 10, 11. You get rid of that whole risk of having that employee be overtired at your work. Because in numerous cases and throughout what history has shown us so far, that it's all it takes is just one little miss up on one little day just to make the big difference. So yes, at the end of the day, with all these sleep that people joke about and think and take it lightly, it is a very serious matter, and sleep is the number one thing everybody should get. And with a shorter workday, it would lead to more productivity and a loss of and more capital to be gained. So, thank you.
I'll be talking about how shorter workdays can lead to a happier workforce, which then increases the productivity within the workplace altogether. So, when working less hours in a day, it is proven that the employee's happiness increases tremendously. This is because it can give you a chance to go home, relax, and relieve your stress much easier. You can have more time with your family, and it also allows for you to have better sleep. In Sweden, a study took place in a nursing home where they decreased the hours worked in the day down to 6 hours a day only. They reported less absences, less sick days, and it also increased the happiness of the workers by 20%. This increased the productivity of the nursing home altogether, and it also increased the profits of the nursing home. Another study showed that longer work days can increase your chance of health risks. These health risks being it can increase your chance of a stroke by 33%, and it can also increase your chance of heart disease by 13%. This was when working at around 55 hours a week. These issues can lead to an increase in stress, which then decreases your happiness overall, which then in the workplace correlates negatively with your employees, and it can also decrease your productivity and happiness altogether. A great theory is the active events theory. This shows how emotions and moods are correlated with work productivity within the workplace. So basically, when you're in a happier mood, you tend to do your work better and more productively. But when you're in a more of a negative mood, you tend to neglect your work, neglect your employees, and also just have overall worse productivity.
Long days at the office can be incredibly stressful, but at what point does that stress lead to becoming unproductive? Unfortunately, there is no theory that can explain the conditions a human is most productive, but there are ideas proven in enhancing efficiency within the workplace while increasing job performance. Accordingly, all studies have shown that short work days correlate with higher outputs of workers. Lonnie Golden states in her Conditions of Work and Employment series number 33 that more precisely, 10% increase in overtime resulted, on average, in a 2.4% decrease in productivity measured per hourly output. Eventually, the request to increase hours per employee will start becoming a burden for those employers. As a result, the workplace will be then highly susceptible to arguments within the office, as well as a decrease in quality of work. Naturally, this will lead to a decrease in effective commitment and to higher rates of employee turnover. Once one person permanently exits the workplace, the erosion model states that it's likely for others to follow, which would be very costly for an organization, since recent studies have shown that it costs about 18 months' salary to replace a manager and about 6 months' salary to replace an hourly worker. Why make an employee work a few extra hours in a day when you're paying more for less? Well, it might be understandable if it comes down to crunch time and something needs to get done, yet it's clear that the most efficient and effective result would be to hire another worker to help with this production. This would not just decrease your costs, but increase your total job performance within the workplace.
Lately, a lot of research has been done to determine whether or not a 6-hour workday increases productivity in workers or an 8-hour workday is still the norm. While the community is torn, it has actually been determined that a 6-hour workday can lead up to productivity amongst workers. However, some jobs simply cannot afford to only have a 6-hour workday, meaning that they work for round numbers, noon to 6, and when they punch in at noon, punch in to 6, that's the only time they're working. Instead, some jobs like counselors, doctors, EMS, police officers, and firefighters are just few of the jobs that all work around the clock and do not actually work regular 6-hour or 8-hour shifts. For example, counselors. If they have a patient that is very suicidal, for example, and they have a patient that is very close to committing suicide, and their patient calls them saying, look, this is what I'm going to do. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. The counselor is morally obligated and professionally, as part of their job, obligated to pick up their phone and talk. They can't just say, oh, I'll talk to them in the morning because, well, there might not be a morning. As for EMS, firefighters, and police officers, if a police officer sees somebody committing robbery and they're off shift, odds are they would call in and say, look, this is happening. Same thing with a firefighter who witnessed a fire. Altogether, these are just a handful of jobs that require people to be working around the clock and not just 8-hour shifts.
So in conclusion, that is why non-work challenge-related stressors have a greater impact and a greater influence on job productivity and job performance than work challenge-related stressors. Furthermore, it also should be noted that several studies have been done and have determined that several jobs actually perform much better when there's less non-work challenge-related stressors around them. Thank you for watching.